Hello and welcome back to the stars, everybody. Welcome back to Starfield, where today we're going to be talking about the Kodama, the nail gun, the space nail gun from Starfield. This one's kind of a weird one just in terms of looks and sort of function, but it's a really cool gun too. It's also kind of strange to me that the Kodama is classified as a rifle rather than like a pistol. Honestly, if there was a category for like submachine gun or automatic weapon, this one would probably fit that the best. But even then, this one's kind of weird. Let's talk about the pros and cons and the base stats of the Kodama. So for base stats, the Kodama does 13 damage, which is fine. That's actually fairly high for a fully automatic gun just for base damage. But that's not its entire amount of damage because the Kodama does bleed. We'll talk about that when we get to pros of this weapon. This one shoots the 7.77mm round. This is one of the most common rounds in the game. There's a lot of guns that use this. The Eon, the Grendel, the Beowulf, the Microgun. They all use the 7.77 round. And I think the Kodama is actually the second best 7.77 gun. The only other one I would say is better than this would be like the Beowulf, just because you get more damage out of it and longer range out of it. This one holds 30 rounds in it by default, which is pretty good. This one has a fairly high rate of fire, but you still don't go through rounds super quick with it. It doesn't feel like you're just emptying out the magazine like immediately. This one has 170 rate of fire, so rate of fire is very high, and the travel time is actually not very long, which I would assume, like this weapon, since the rivet gun shoots slow, and I kind of just associate this with being a tool even though it's not, that it would be something similar with the travel time, but it really isn't. It's basically instant, so that's really nice. This has 20 meters of effective range, the same as most handguns, which is much shorter than most rifles, like this one's considered, but this one does kind of fill more of a submachine gun role than a rifle role. This one has decent accuracy. This one also fires out in a shotgun pattern too, so you don't need to be that accurate with it. You just need to be close enough or generally on target with your shots, and they'll work just fine. And then this one weighs 2.25, so it's not very heavy either. For the general pros of the Kodama, this one does have bleed on it, which is really cool. This will deal damage over time, and it works on everything besides robots, so bleeding out enemies can be pretty good. It makes so you can spread pressure a little bit easier and even have pressure while you're reloading. This one has pretty high damage per second because it does shoot pretty quick, so that's always good. The bleed also helps with that. It has a high rate of fire, which is nice. Helps with the high DPS as well, and it has very common ammo. The 7.77 is sold by every merchant. It's very cheap. A lot of enemies are going to have this on them, whether they're carrying Grendels, Beowulfs, whatever it might be. For the general cons of the Kodama, it does do low damage per shot, although that doesn't really matter with the damage per second that it has in the bleed, and this is kind of rare. It's not one of the more rare weapons in the game, and on my recent rifle tier list, I believe I put this into B tier, but I should probably move it up to A tier. It is a pretty good weapon. Alright, I'm back, which is why I'm wearing kind of different clothes right now. Had to go and do some stuff. Anyway, let's talk about a modded version of the Kodama and where I'd put that on the tier list. So, very first up, let's start out with the barrel of the Kodama, or lack of a barrel. You don't really get to pick one of those. And let's just go to the laser. So for a laser, I would just recommend the Recon laser. Just like always, the Recon laser is the best option. Like the regular laser's fine too, and if you can't have either, it's not a huge deal. They're just kind of a nice upgrade for the weapon. For optics, you either have iron sights or you have the reflex sight. The reflex sight is fine. The iron sights are also fine for the Kodama, so pick whichever one you like more. I went with reflex on mine, but it doesn't really matter that much. Then for a muzzle, I would recommend a suppressor for this. If you have the sneak perk, this is just going to get you more damage. If you don't have that, the compensator or the muzzle brake are also pretty decent, but I do like the suppressor on this one quite a lot. It actually sounds pretty good. Some of the suppressed weapons in this sound a little bit strange. I think this one is actually one of the better sounding ones. Then for a grip and stock, I would recommend the tactical folding stock. This one is, weirdly enough, actually less weight than anything else, even less weight than just the regular tactical grip for this. I don't know how adding an entire stock to the weapon actually makes it lighter, but okay. Honestly, any of the stocks are fine, though. They're all pretty decent. Then for a magazine, I would recommend the drum magazine. This takes it from 30 rounds up to 66 rounds. If you don't like this, though, and you want to go with one of the other options, they're also pretty good. The extended mag gives you something like 44 rounds in it, so it's pretty decent. And then the tactical magazine doesn't give you any more rounds, but it does give you a faster reload speed, which is also pretty good. I just like the drum magazine for this one because this one does excel at just having sustained fire. Then for an internal, you have one of two options. You either have the high powered or the high velocity. I'd recommend high powered with this one over high velocity. I don't really use the Kodama for range. Range isn't really the Kodama's strong suit. It works really well at close range, and having more damage on it just helps it more, in my opinion. Then for a receiver, you could either go with full auto or burst fire. Burst fire is 3-round bursts, which this weapon already doesn't have very much recoil, so the burst fire isn't that bad to control. The full auto isn't too hard to control either with it. Pick whichever one you'd like. Burst fire technically does get you more damage. I was able to get about 40 more damage on mine, which is a pretty sizable amount, but if you don't like having to keep tap firing this, you can just hold it down, and the full auto is pretty effective as well. With all of these onto the Kodama, I would move this actually up a tier. I would go from this being into A tier up into S tier. It is a very good weapon, and I think it outcompetes everything else that shoots the 7.77mm round at close range for consistent damage. Besides maybe the minigun, depending on mods that you have on it and depending on what legendary effects it has. But I do think it's better than all the other ones, at least in that particular role. I would still say the Beowulf is probably the best 7.77 gun out of all of the guns. Then we have one unique version that we need to talk about too. This is called the Vampire's Gift. You can get the Vampire's Gift at the end of the UC Vanguard quest, or close to the end of this, whenever you go back to Mars, where you can talk to the new vendor that's there. So it's going to be later on into this quest, but he does have 2 unique weapons on him. He has this, and he has the Reckless Bombardment, the unique Negotiator. The Vampire's Gift already comes decked out with a lot of really good mods on it. For mods, it has Burst Fire already on it. It has a drum magazine, a folding stock, high velocity, a recon laser, and a suppressor already on it. All of those are really, really good. Those are all really nice things to have on this particular weapon, and it's basically built the way I really enjoy it too. So that one's great, and it does have a unique effect on it. This has the Med Theft ability on it, which is kind of interesting, but a little bit underwhelming in my opinion. What Med Theft does is whenever you kill a human enemy, then there is an extra chance that they will drop med packs. This is specifically med packs. This isn't like emergency kits or the trauma packs. Nothing like that, it's just the regular med packs, and this is something like a 5% chance of them dropping an extra one. It's very low, and it doesn't usually trigger that often, and if you're not using this against humans, then it doesn't work either. It's not like the various wildlife can drop med packs, although that would be really cool if they could. And this one could be worth getting though, because the base damage and all of the bonus things that it already has on it, with it being fully kitted out, is really, really good, and the Kodama isn't one of the more common weapons. So you don't always see vendors selling this, and enemies don't always have it. It is kind of annoying when enemies do have this, because they can deal a lot of damage and damage over time to you with it. But you're not going to be finding a whole lot of legendary versions of this. At least I personally haven't found very many legendary Kodamas. So to wrap this up, should you use the Kodama? I would say yeah, unless you're not using rifles or you're not using the 7.77 round for anything else. Then the Kodama can be really good. It can actually be really good at close range. I tend to not use it just because I use the Beowulf a lot, but my second option would definitely be the Kodama out of those guns that use this round. So tell me your thoughts down in the comments below on the Kodama. How are you enjoying it? How do you like to build it? And do you use it very often? Thank you guys so very much for watching this. I hope you guys did enjoy this, and I will talk to you guys next time. Till then, stay cool, and bye-bye everyone!